It's February, so first off, I would just like to say to everyone, Happy Black History Month. Salam guys, so I know I've been getting a lot of questions from you and I promised that I would make a video trying to answer all those questions at once, so this is that video. Usually the first question that I get asked when people ask me about medical school is, how did I know that I wanted to go into medical school? And usually when I talk to my other friends, they always have some type of anecdote or story where they had a sick family member, or one of their best friends, something happened to them, or they broke their leg as a kid and they went to the hospital and then all of a sudden they met the doctors and they knew. For me, I really don't have that type of story. I just know that I always wanted to be a doctor. And there were definitely times where I was like, maybe I should switch to something else. Maybe I should think about something else. But I was kind of like, I had tunnel vision. Like, this is what I wanted to do. And I kind of knew that I couldn't be happy doing anything else. Some advice I would give to someone who wants to do medicine is, if you could see yourself being happy doing anything else that's feasible, then do it. Because it's not easy. And for me, there were a lot of times where people would be like, oh, how about you need to have a plan B just in case something doesn't work out. And for me, my plan B was always just figuring out another way to get to plan A, to be honest. Like, I never saw myself being a PA. I never saw myself going into pharm school. My goal wasn't to be just a doctor and have the MD at the end of my name or have the DR prefix in front of my name. I just wanted to be a medical doctor. Like, I wanted to do medicine. I didn't want to do pharmacy. I didn't want to be a physician's assistant. I didn't want to be a nurse. I just wanted to be a doctor. It's the fact that I can't see myself doing anything else that I kept pushing to do this. We're going to start from high school. I know that's going back, but I feel like a lot of people start figuring out that if they want to do medicine, then they need to start doing volunteering work and things like that in high school. So in high school, I didn't start volunteering in the hospital till I was about a senior in high school, and I started doing it in the summer. So like the summer right before my senior year. And it was just like this junior volunteer program where we would work in the children's hospital, and you would like meet the patients and make sure they weren't too bored when their parents weren't there, because a lot of them were children that were living in the hospital. And then a lot of things that we did was clean up playrooms and go to different clinics and play with kids. And it was very fun, very low maintenance, but at the same time I feel like it had a lot of an impact. Do I feel like it had an impact in whether or not I got into medical school? Not really. It was just like a way for me to get into that mode of thinking, since I did want to pursue medicine. Fast forward, I graduated high school. I didn't get like an amazing GPA or anything. I got enough GPA to go to college, so alhamdulillah, I went to college. I went to the University of Tennessee for 4 years. And while I was at the University of Tennessee, I had to pick a major. So I majored in microbiology, and at the time, I didn't understand that at my university, you have the option to major in anything you want, and all you have to do to apply to medical school is take prerequisites. I was under the impression that I had to major in a biology, because I wouldn't be able to get into medical school, so I picked microbiology. Now that I'm looking back, I wish I realized that I didn't have to do that. Like, I probably would have majored in, journalism or something interesting, like human African studies or humanitarian studies, something that I'm passionate about. But that's neither here nor there. Check your university to make sure if you actually have to have a bio degree before you go into medicine, because a lot of times that's not the case. Like, you can usually major in anything you want as long as you take the prerequisites. I went to college for 4 years. During that time, I had a horrible counselor. I don't mind saying this. Like, he actually told me in my senior year that I probably wasn't going to graduate in 4 years, and I was like, sir, that's not an option, sir, because my scholarship runs out this year. But I had to work really hard, and although it did kill my GPA because I had to take a lot of core classes that were very difficult in my senior year, my GPA did struggle because I didn't do great in all those classes. I ended up getting mostly B's and like a few C's. So my final graduating GPA was a 3.2, and my final science GPA was a 2.7 or 6, I believe. 7 or 6, something around there. For anyone who knows anything about applying to medical school, you know right then and there that GPA is not competitive for medical school. Me, my little naive, unknowing self, didn't realize that, so I decided that I was going to apply to medical school. So to do that, I needed to take the MCAT. I know a lot of people take MCAT courses and they do these Kaplan courses, or they do like MCAT boot camp where they take the summer for like 6 weeks and they do an intense MCAT study and then they take the MCAT. I didn't have that option. So what I did was, my friend Lema, shout out to Lema, she gave me some of her MCAT exam cracker books, and I would take them to the library every day during that summer after I graduated, and I would sit there and study and study and study and take practice tests and just do it on my own. Oh, I should say that I did take a gap year. So my gap year was intentional. I didn't apply. Like, usually whenever you're applying to med school, to make sure that you get in right after you graduate from undergrad, you start applying your junior year. But I didn't start applying until my senior year of college. So my goal was to take a gap year. I would study and things like that, and I worked in a lab, so I did research for 4 years in a lab. And I would study, and I didn't ever take the old MCAT. There was an old MCAT, and I think the last chance to take it was around 2015. So I had the option to take the last MCAT, but I decided to go ahead and take the new MCAT. First score was a 491, which is an equivalent to a 19 on the old MCAT, if you're just comparing, which is a low score. So I think I was in like the 20th percentile, so 80% of the people that took the MCAT did better than me, basically. Low score, 2.6 science GPA, 3.2 cumulative GPA. I applied to medical school with that, and I didn't get in. My first time applying, I applied to all MD schools, and then I only applied to one DO school because I didn't really know what DO schools were. I didn't know about them. The only thing I really heard about DO schools that people would say would be like, oh yeah, it's like not the same as MD. It's like lower than MD. You don't want to do that. And that was what I would hear like my classmates saying, which what do they know? When I didn't get into medical school, I was devastated, but I decided that obviously I wasn't going to quit, so I needed to figure out what the problem was. I know I don't have clinical work. I don't have any clinical experience. I already did undergrad. I just got out of school. I don't want to go into school anymore, like right now again. Maybe if I boost up my clinical experience and I do better on my next MCAT, I can get in. So I applied to become a scribe in the ER. So I worked for physicists for 2 years. I worked as a scribe in the ER. As a scribe, basically what you have to do is follow around the doctor, and you have to learn how to work the EMR, which is the emergency medical record. It's a lot of charting. It's a lot of putting in history of present illness, aka HPI. So if someone comes in, let's say, and they're like, oh, I was riding my bike and I was going down the hill really fast, and I tried to swerve out of the way of this tree and I hit the tree and I broke my leg, and like, you know, they come in with their complaint. So you're charting all of this, and anytime they're saying, oh, I have pain here, and the doctor asks a question, you like chart it and you click little things. So it's like shadowing, but to the extreme level, and it's in the ER. Because wherever the doctor is, you are. Wherever the doctor is, you're there. So whenever the patient's saying a complaint, or they're giving you more history about what happened, or they're answering questions, or if the doctor's doing a procedure, all of that has to go into the emergency medical record. All of that has to go in the chart, and that's your job. And at the same time, certain hospitals that I worked at, I would help with, you know, helping put on a cast, or assisting the doctor with a central line or an intubation or something like that. Like if they were low staffed, I would just hold things basically. You're not really allowed to talk to patients. You're not really allowed to touch patients at all because you're not clinical personnel. You're just a scribe. I did that for 2 years, and then I applied to medical school the next cycle, and I retook my MCAT for a second time. We took my MCAT for a second time, and I got the same exact score, 491. So here I was, same undergrad GPA, same science GPA, took my MCAT again, and I got the same score, but this time I had clinical experience. And the second time around, I didn't apply to MD schools. I only applied to DO schools. I applied to 5 DO schools. I didn't get into one, not one. Here I was again, 2 years out, so now I was primed to be taking a second gap year. I didn't want to just be doing nothing during my second gap year. Like, I didn't want to just not be doing school. So the second gap year, I worked part-time in the ER as a scribe, and then I also went to school for seminary school. Seminary school is a specifically religious-based school, so it's when you're studying faith. So a lot of times they have Christian seminary schools. I went to a Muslim seminary school called Taysir Seminary in Knoxville, Tennessee. So I did that for a year, and I absolutely loved it. So while I was there, I started thinking about the journey that I had been on, and like all the effort that I had been putting into getting into medical school, and like taking the MCAT and doing the clinical work and scribing, and like all this effort that I was putting into getting into medicine and to go be a doctor and get into medical school. And I just started like wondering if it was worth it. And do I really want to do this? Like, do I really want to try again? When I got rejected the second time, I decided that I was going to apply to master's programs. It was becoming evident to me that the problem wasn't just my MCAT score, but it was also my undergrad GPA. I graduated 3.2, but when you're applying to medical school, a 2.6 or 7 science GPA is really low. And usually when I would talk to people who are non-medical associated and I would say, oh, I graduated undergrad with 3.2, they would say, oh, that's not that bad. That's like over a 3. It isn't that bad. But at the same time, it's not competitive for medical school because you're talking about people who are getting like all A's and B's in their classes, who are acing their MCATs, and you're competing against them. So I decided that I need to do something like a post-bac or a master's program or something to boost my GPA. So that's when I started applying to master's programs. I applied to the KCU master's program that winter, and then I think I got accepted about a month after I applied. One of the questions that I got specifically was, do you think I can get into a master's program with a low GPA? I say yes. Number one, the MCAT that they were asking for a minimum required MCAT at KCU was a 495. As I told you before, I didn't have a 495, I had a 491, but I still applied. That didn't stop me from applying. I also had a low GPA and a low science GPA, and I still applied with it. I really decided to apply just to see what happens. So my advice would be, if you're trying to narrow down master's programs or post-bac programs and you're looking at the requirements and it says something like the minimum MCAT that you don't have or the minimum GPA that you don't have, don't just write that off. If you want to apply, apply and see what happens. Like, from what I've realized throughout all this is there's no concrete rule. There's no like formula that says this is exactly what you need to do to get in, and if you don't have it, then you can't get in. It's just not the case. There's no hurt in trying. I applied, and I was really excited. I got in, and I moved to Kansas City, packed all my things up, and I started school in 2017? Yeah, 2017, that fall. So last year. So this was going to be now my 3rd year out from undergrad because I graduated in 2015. So this was going to be like a 3rd gap year. My mentality going into this master's program was like, I'm here to work. Like, I'm here to work. I'm here to make these grades. I'm here to like boost up my GPA because I want to get into med school. I graduated the master's program at KCU with a 3.8 GPA, I believe, at the end. My first semester, I got a 3.8, and then my second semester, I think I got a 3.8, which just averaged out to a 3.8. So here's the thing. My MCAT score was still really low, 491. I took it twice. I got the same score twice. That's what was hurting me at this point. I needed to retake my MCAT. So while I was studying for school in the master's program, I was also studying for the MCAT. So how I would do it was I would study for school throughout the week, and then every Saturday morning I would dedicate that to MCAT study, at least 6 hours, and then throughout the week from like 8 to 10, that would be MCAT study. So I was studying at least 10 hours a week, sometimes more than that. And that was just like literally, I just went hard the whole semester. I signed up for the MCAT in January. So the thing about DO schools is a lot of them will accept the January MCAT because a lot of DO programs will close their application cycle in January, February, like that. Not the same case for MD schools, which closed a lot earlier. And by this time, I had already decided that I wanted to go DO strictly. Because of scribing, I was able to work with a lot of MDs and a lot of DOs. And I started to learn more about osteopathic medicine and osteopathic school. And it sounded like it applied more to what I wanted to do and what I liked. So my 3rd time applying to med school, now this would be my 3rd time, I only applied to osteopathic schools. So I'm applying to med school again while I'm in the master's program, while I'm studying for the MCAT, and I think I ended up applying for 11 different schools, obviously KCU being one of them. And I took my MCAT, I think like the 2nd week of January, something like that. It was about 2 weeks into the 2nd semester of school, and I got my score about a month later. A lot of the medical schools that I applied to during my first semester at the master's program wrote me off completely just off the bat because they were still using my undergrad scores of a 3.2 GPA and a 2.6 science GPA. So a lot of times, if you don't have a 3.0 science GPA, you just get cut off. As in, like, you don't make it through that firewall. You just get filtered out. So it didn't matter to them that I was in a master's program currently, that I was going to get new grades in about a month. They were just like, well, you don't have the science GPA, so we can't. Some of the schools, I emailed them and I called them and I would tell them, I'm in a master's program. My GPA is going to be up. I have a 3.8 this semester, so it's going to be affected. My science GPA is going to go up. And they'd be like, okay, so whenever you get your transcript in and you're done with the semester, screenshot it or like send it to us. Some of them were willing to work with me like that, but a lot of them still just filtered me out because I didn't have a 3.0 GPA. So I took my MCAT in January, and alhamdulillah, or all praise to God, I raised it up by 7 points for my final MCAT score that I got was a 498. So it went from a 491 to a 498, but it still wasn't enough. My goal was a 500, because a 500 kind of puts you at this sweet spot that's like the average score that everyone gets. And I was 2 points away, so it's just like I was 2 points away from a 500. So I was like within that little bit of a range, but it wasn't where I wanted to get to. But I was still happy with it because my main fear was I didn't want to decrease my GPA. I didn't want to go down. I applied to KCU, and all praise to God, alhamdulillah, I got an interview. I also got an interview at another school, but my main school that I want to go to was KCU, my top school, because I was already here. I already had a relationship with the professors. I already knew, like, you know, the ins and outs of a little bit, and it just seemed like the most natural decision. So I didn't end up going to the other interview because before that interview came about, I got my acceptance into KCU. One of the last questions that I got asked was my biggest struggle when it came to this journey. And I'm going to say that my biggest struggle in this whole journey was self-doubt. Self-doubt was a really hard one for me because I already told you that I graduated in 2015, and so now it's 2019, and I started med school here in 2018, so it was 3 years. And you know, when you're younger and you have this idea, you have this plan for exactly what you want to do, you're going to go to high school, you're going to graduate, you're going to go to undergrad, you're going to graduate, and then you're going to get in med school, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And like, you have so many plans, but God and life has so many other plans for you that you just don't know. So it can be disheartening. I started doubting myself. Do I really want to do this? Is this really meant for me? Maybe this is a sign that I shouldn't be doing this. Other people will doubt you. I can't explain to you the amount of times that I would talk to counselors and they would tell me, "Oh, you want to be you want to go to med school? How about you just be a nurse?" Or I don't want to be a nurse. You see what I'm saying? Like, don't tell me that. Or something like, "Oh, well, if you had gone to PA school, you would have been done by now." Things like that. I don't want to be a PA. That's not my desire. I wanted to go to medical school. Whenever you have those like people talking in your ear and giving you those doubts, you start to believe it. You start to doubt yourself. You start to wonder, is this for me? And sometimes you have to be realistic. I had to be realistic with myself. I kept trying to apply with a low GPA. I kept trying to apply without boosting my science GPA, and it wasn't working. So I had to figure out what was going to work. So I decided to do the master's program. And if that's what you need to do, then do it. If you need to do a post-bac program, then do it. If you need to Google things and figure out if there's grants and scholarships, do it. Whatever you need to do, do it. I will say, though, a lot of times throughout the journey, I started to realize that other people that I knew that were going on this journey had it different, if you know what I mean. There's a certain element of social capital and resources and financial capital when it comes to applying to grad school or professional school or medical school, any type of professional school really. It's sometimes about the people you know that you can be able to shadow, or the people who know you, who can write you a recommendation letter, or the people that, you know, or your parents who can give you money to help you take a boot camp MCAT class to help you raise your MCAT score. And a lot of times those aren't resources that are available to students of color and minorities. When it comes to the medical field, underrepresented minorities include Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. People who are East Asian or Southeast Asian or white are overrepresented. So they're not considered minorities, although if you're East Asian or Southeast Asian in the United States in general, you would be considered a minority. There's a reason that there's not as many minorities in medical school, and it's because of that lack of resources, lack of awareness, social capital and financial capital. So we're still struggling out here, but we are here. And once you make it, and you will make it, if you're watching this right now and you're thinking like, "Oh, I wanna be there. Like, I wanna be in medical school too. Like, this is what I want." I promise you, I was doing the same exact thing. I used to Google all types of interview help and GPA and minorities in med school and things like that, and like look up YouTube videos and just be like, I want to be there. That's what I want to be. I'm telling you right now, you can. Like, if I can do it, me, knowing like what I've been through, what I've shared with you, my scores or my lack of experience or my lack of resources, listen, if it is meant to be, it'll be. As long as you believe in yourself and you push yourself and you put in the work, why can't it happen? I just want to say thank you so much for watching this. Also, hi to all the new recent subscribers. I don't really have that many, so like whoever I have that comes and actually watches these videos and like subscribes to this channel, I really do appreciate you. And I really do want to answer any questions you have. If you have any questions or if you need any advice, if you want to know about any resources or any details that I might have left out, please just message me. You can DM me on Instagram or you can comment below if you don't mind, like, everyone else seeing it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace and assalamu alaikum.